I was watching Madness Combat Iceberg Part 2 because being a sucker for drama, I wanted to know the follow-up after the first part. I won't be focusing on that because it's been fully covered and there is no need for me to add anything. Instead, I was watching the final part about Neo and Post Madness. I started thinking about other Madness Combat animations that have little or no relation to the original series. And no, I'm not saying the example used in the video is a bad one. Seriously though, check out Curiosity, it's really good. I was thinking about other good original animations from the early days of Madness Combat, such as Madness of the Dead and Maximum Ninja, but there's also one early original animation that was a little different from the rest.
They jailed us like dogs, waiting for our execution. Needless to say, they failed miserably. Betrayal won't go unpunished.
Oh yeah, the most edgy and Deviantart anime OC Madness Combat animation of them all. Xionic Madness. Okay, let's be clear, this is not going to be a shitting on video. It would be easy and unfair for me to mock the series with obvious statements such as either too cringy or too Mary Sue or Gary Sue, whatever. I'll be judging this series as fair as I can with the thought in mind that this is a very old series. I mean, this was made in the era of early Deviantart and Newgrounds when anime like Sayuki was popular. Was Sayuki popular, or was it just my sister's obsession with it at the time? So without further ado, Xionic Madness is a Madness Combat style animated web series created by Xionico and was made from September 2007 to August 2012 with a total of 5 episodes including a side episode. The series followed the story of Omega and Zero with an X. I'll repeat, Zero with an X. They and 2 other members of their team, Carry 08 and Ascad, go on a suicide mission to kill 25. Of course, things take a turn and the duo go through a journey of violence and betrayal. I know, the names are what you expect from Deviantart, but that's not important for this video. Now, the story of the series doesn't have to be complicated. Animating is hard and writing for animation is harder, but I think there's some moments I felt that could be easily fixed or better. In episode 3, Omega goes on a monologue about he and Zero getting betrayed by their leader, the Overseer, and is unsure why. At first, the monologue felt off in pacing because all of a sudden they're now fighting against their own leader. This is because the first scene of episode 4 is Carrie following the Overseer's orders and betraying Zero and Omega. After watching the series again, it would have been cohesive if we saw the betrayal scene first at episode 3. In fact, the person who re-uploaded the entire scenes on YouTube, BobDude0987654321, even arranged the betrayal scene to be shown first before the start of episode 3. It just flows better. Like when I saw Omega and Zero fighting in episode 3 without their armor, I thought it was a prequel to the events of episode 1. Also, when Ascad's cyborg came in, I thought it was a Deus Ex Machina because it came in at almost the last minute of episode 4, but it was actually part of his plan since it was already revealed he knew about Carrie's betrayal. If there was one thing for me to personally add to this series is to elaborate on the characters' relationship together as a team. There was one line in Omega's monologue, "We are no threat to Carrier 08's reactor." I would have cut the fight shorter to make space for the backstory from episode 4 so that the audience can see why Omega and Zero doesn't understand why Carrie betrayed them, because they believe that they were close. Sure, the audience won't get long, cool fight scenes with the grunts, but I think it would be more impactful for the betrayal when you can see more emotion between Zero and Omega as they try to figure out why Carrie would try to kill them. Like, imagine them being really good friends outside of missions and just hanging around, just for a short few seconds. I know that sounds kinda boring and stuff, but it would be cool for Xionic Madness to kinda go up there as a more story-oriented Madness Combat series, separating itself from the rest of the Madness animations. Other than that, it's a pretty typical revenge story, nothing much else to say. However, there are some funny things I wanted to point out. You can tell Zero was the favorite of the series. Other than surviving the whole ordeal, he has the personality of a swearing Dante and the fighting style of Virgil. He's kinda like Dante from the DMC remake now that I think about it. And of course the dialogue is just,
They are tearing your troops apart. Why don't you let me take care of them?
That's the big negative. We will crush them with the new prototype.
Your obstination will be your downfall, old man.
Look it! That guy took out our artillery by himself! Run for it! Because I'm coming for your neck!
Sheesh, boys. I let you be for a few hours and look what happens. You destroyed half a city. Did you really have to blow up those dolls with the Longinus knives?
Cynical bitch.
Ready? Heaven or hell!
Duel 1!
Let's rock!
just peak OC anime. It's something that would come out of fanfiction.net or Deviantart fanfiction. Some of them do give me some secondhand embarrassment, but it's not the worst offending dialogue at all. On a side note about voice acting, it really isn't the best, mostly because the dialogue and the writing, but I will commend for their effort. A lot of Madness Combat animations don't have voice acting, and the fact that Xionic got some peeps to voice his characters is pretty cool. Their contributions to those voices may have even helped their voice acting portfolios. Did you know that the voice actress for Carrie, Kim Lin Chan, voiced the Metro Cats in A Hat in Time, Miss Fortune and Robot Fortune in Skullgirls, and hold up, Fidget in Dust and Elysian Tale? Okay, that's very cool. From voicing a femme fatale cyborg to this. Actually, I didn't know about this until I looked her up, so that's really cool. Alright, so moving on to the art style. Personally, I quite like the look of Xionic Madness. It has these thick lines that help define the shapes for easy reading and making weapons and armor look clean, and with the addition of flat shading on each sprite, it's just a nice touch. My only problem is the character designs. Despite the technical skill, it's a bit too much on the amount of accessories, plating, and details that is hard to determine what's what. Like, what is that? Are those scan lines? Are those blades sticking out of his headband? And I could barely see what the fuck that is. It's like they're the final boss in Adventure Quest or something. It's a bit too much. The designs do get ironed out later in each episode with some neat mask lighting, but I think it would be better if the armor was a bit simpler for a more identifying look. Though I will applaud that the main characters get a different outfit every episode. Now for the camera and composition, there are some nice shots that are almost cinema-like quality, and there are some shots though, however, that are disorienting when it's not needed to be. Especially when Zero and Omega clash with the Armor Boys. This fight scene alone was sadly not enjoyable for me to watch. The camera just kept moving around even though the characters are more grounded when fighting the armors compared to the usual grunts. Like, Zero's just standing there, but the camera keeps moving around for some reason. Thankfully, most of the shots are not like that, and the composition is a lot better in episode 4, and I say it's Xionico's best composition. Obviously, I should be discussing the overall fighting in the series, so most of the fights have been pretty good so far, lots of cool angles and abilities. Omega and Zero's fighting styles kind of remind me of Devil May Cry, especially Zero, who again plays a lot like Virgil. My only problem is that Omega and Zero are so overpowered against grunts that there really isn't anything exciting to watch until they meet their match. Like, they don't get challenged or change their style a little bit when fighting against slightly better grunts and stuff like that, and it doesn't really help with the dialogue either.
Looks like you can't do shit without a gun in your hand, huh?
Wrong. Dead wrong.
Okay, I held back as much as I can, but I'm kinda annoyed by this because I'm like, oh, so this doesn't change jack shit. He can still kill with or without his guns. He could have just taken the grunt's gun and be like, what do you mean? I have a gun. I'm surprised Xionic didn't think of making a cool short fight scene of Omega picking up guns on the ground and using them. Like, it's textbook Madness Combat. Guns are temporary. The mission is everything. And in the next fucking shot, he has a gun now from nowhere. Like, what was the point of that other than just being cool? I'll just say, it just didn't fucking work. Moving on. final fight in episode 4 is definitely the best one. Once Zero and Omega are stripped down to only a few weapons, it starts to get interesting. And Xionic did a good job making the soldiers like the heroes of part 2. I'll always be a sucker for underdogs, so when they popped up, I was immediately rooting for them, even though they are probably going to die. Rest in peace, soldiers. If I were to change one thing, is to remove Zero's ability to summon weapons out of his warping inventory and instead have 3 swords in total like Zoro from One Piece to give a bit of character. Like he takes care of his precious swords or something, while Omega can still keep his inventory of guns because he likes to have every tool to solve every problem. I like this bit where Omega gives Zero an adrenaline shot. It makes me think that Zero is so hot shit that he doesn't need to prepare for anything, and Omega just knows he didn't bring any last resort items with him. Like, I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but I like to think it's quite characteristic of them. So the ending is pretty open-ended. Zero survives but is hunted throughout the rest of his life from the same company he was from despite the death of the Overseer, but at least he raised and trained a young student named Enid or Kaylina. Eventually the 25 virus that has affected Omega has reached its peak inside the dying Zero, and so he seeks for a glorious fight while leaving the burden of ending this mysterious villain to Enid. I have to admit, I don't really like it when endings are left with the possibility of a sequel, especially when the creator plans to end it like that, but again, the series has run for 6 years. Much like webcomics and other creative series by individuals on the internet, it's very hard to make a series. It's a very slow process to continue making, and it's even harder to finish it, especially if you are working on the entire thing alone. So I don't really mind if Xionic just wanted to end the series and move on to other projects and stuff. At least we got an ending compared to other Madness Combat series. Overall, Xionic Madness is a pretty neat Madness Combat inspired original series. Though it wouldn't be a series I would come back from time to time, I still enjoyed the passion and effort made from each episode. You can just see the work made into it with attention and detail despite some missed shots. I may have been a bit too harsh on this series and kinda almost lost it at some point, but I am judging this as fair as I can. Again, it's not my intention to make fun of this series by pointing out the obvious. I really think this series would have been a unique one compared to other Madness Combat animations. Anyway, that's all I have to say for the series. I'm gonna take a dark nap after this, so thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.